All right, in this formula, we have A of t equals A times 1 plus or minus r raised to the t power. This is letting me model growth or decay, okay? If you had the formula f of x equals 2 times 2 raised to the x power, what does this f of x represent? What does the f of x represent that y'all can now see?
The y.
It represents y, okay? What does this x right here represent? The exponent, but it's a y, it's an x value, right? If I were to go graph, the way I get those ordered pairs to plot that is this is my x, this is my y, to go plot that point and make a graph, okay? In this formula, we don't have x's and y's. We have A of t. What's A of t equivalent to up here? F of x. So that A of t is going to be your y value, okay? So A of t equals, this A is the initial amount that you start with, okay? This A of t, this y value, is the final amount of money or population or whatever you're talking about. So A of t equals, this A represents the initial amount that you start with. Initial means what you start with, so the initial amount. So A times 1 plus or minus a percentage rate, okay? 1 plus or minus a percentage rate. That percentage rate has to be written in decimal form. That's your rate of increase or decrease. Over here, they just say rate of increase, but if you do 1 minus a number, that's going to make that base a fraction or decimal, and therefore you would have a rate of decrease instead of increase. Okay? So A of t equals A times 1 plus or minus r. This is your rate of increase or decrease, raised to some power. Well, what does this exponent right here represent? Like this A of t is the same thing as y. What is this t the same thing as? What is it? Your x value. It's your x value, okay? So this A of t is your y value. This t is your x value. And this t represents the number of time periods. Number of time periods. And I know that's written over here, but I'm just letting you know. So number of time periods. That could be number of years, number of months, number of weeks, okay? So I have a set of variables. So this represents something. This little a represents something else, your rate of increase, and then your raised to the t power. That's 4 different letters. You're going to know 3 of that 4 bits of information, and you have to find that 4th bit, okay? So 1 plus r is a growth factor. That means you're increasing in value. And your decay factor if you have 1 minus r, okay? So let's go look at number 6. Number 6 says Clara invests $5,000 in an account that pays 6.25% interest per year. After how many years will her investment be worth $10,000? Okay, so first thing you need to do is write down that formula and plug stuff into that formula. Okay, so we have A of t equals, A stands for the initial amount, what we started with, times 1. Now right here, don't put 1 plus or minus r. You have to decide, is it 1 plus r or is it 1 minus r? Why are y'all saying plus? Okay, now just because you invest money does not mean your money is going to grow. Okay, so don't be fooled by that. Just because you're investing money, you can lose money and then you have a rate of decrease. Okay? So, but look what she did. Clara invests $5,000. After how many years will her investment be worth $10,000? So, is her money growing or decreasing? It's growing. So, this is going to be a growth rate. Okay? So, 1 plus r raised to the tth power. Now, let's go filling in what we know. This A of T is our final amount. So what's the final amount up here? $10,000. All right, so we're going to end with $10,000. What did we start with? We started with $5,000. Y'all are always talking about, when are we going to use this stuff? Does this sound like you would use an exponential function? Yes, right here. This is real world right here. So 10,000 equals $5,000 plus times 1 plus, what's my rate right here? 6.25. Now, come back over here where we wrote this down a while ago. This rate of increase, do you see how you have a percent here? Well, you can't put percent in your calculator, so we've got to change that percent to decimal, okay? So make sure that that percent is written in decimal form. Go add that to your little formula right there. That needs to go to decimal form. So what is 6.25% as a decimal? How do you change something from percent to decimal? What? Divide it by 100. Okay, what could we do real quick to show that we divided by 100? Move the decimal place. How many places? 2. Which way? To the left. So here's my decimal. Move it 2 places to the left. So 0.0625 is my decimal. Okay, move it 2 places to the left. So 10,000 equals 5,000 plus 0.0625 raised to some power. Do you see how every letter is filled in except for T here in the exponent? Well, look what the question says. After how many years? So I'm looking for the number of years. I'm looking for that time period. Okay? Well, how can you do that? How can you figure out what T is? Anybody? You pick up your trusty little calculator. So let's pick up our calculator. What do we know that this 10,000 represents? The final amount. But when I go putting in my calculator, what is that 10,000 standing for? X or Y? The Y value. Remember, this A of T is your Y value. And what is this T that we're looking for? That's the X value. So what we want to know, what we want to get in our calculator is the X value that goes with the Y value being 10,000. That's what you're looking for. Okay? So in your calculator, go to Y equals, clear out any equations that are in that calculator. If you don't have a calculator, you're going to have to find one. There should be one laying around somewhere. Right, here's one that the batteries are low. It should work, though. All right, so go to Y equals, and let's put this equation in. Instead of me putting the 10,000 in there, though, that's what Y is. So I've already got the Y here. So just do Y equals 5,000 times, what is 1 plus 0.0625? 1.0625 raised to the X power. How do I raise to a power? This little caret button right here above the division button. This is your raise to power. So raise to the X power. Where's the X button? Below mode. Go up to second, go over to mode, and go down 1, and there's where your X value is. So 5,000 times 1.0625 raised to the X power. And hit graph. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Okay, everybody right now hit Zoom Standard. That should be the very first thing that we do before we go graph. That lets me see that 10 by 10 viewing window there. And I'm scrolling up here. I've stopped scrolling. Do y'all see anything on your graph? Do you know why you don't see anything on your graph? It's not because we screwed up. It's because what? It's way up there somewhere. Do you know way up there where it is? Look right here. Do you see how we started out with $5,000 and we're investing after, well, if we start right now, how many years have we been investing our money? If I invest money today, how many years have I been investing? 0. I'm starting, so at 0 years. Well, what is anything raised to the 0 power? 1 times that initial amount. So when X is 0, what's the Y value? When X is 0 right here, what's that Y value right there going to be? 5,000. Y'all, we just did it. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 times 5,000 is 5,000. That means my initial place, my y-axis, my y-intercept is up at 5,000. Well, how are we ever going to see up at 5,000? How are we going to get there in our calculator? You can either zoom out a whole lot, or something easier is zoom fit. Go up to zoom fit and scroll down to number 10 and hit enter. And wait until it stops scrolling up there. You can see it scrolling up there on the right hand side. Don't hit buttons until that stops scrolling, because if you keep hitting buttons, you're going to lock up the calculator. Now, do y'all see where I've crossed here? Looks kind of crazy, doesn't it? But if you'll notice down here across the bottom, those X values are still going by 10, but it zoomed that Y value part. It zoomed it out. It squished those Y values up, so you could see up at 5,000. Okay, that's what you're seeing. Now, hit trace. It's on across the top. Now, do you see how you're blinking and you have the ordered pair 0, 5,000? Well, that means at 0 years, I have $5,000. I want to know how many years it's going to take me to get $10,000. So we hit trace. So trace across and find what's your X and your Y value. When your Y value gets to 10,000, tell me what that X value is. It's taking a little while to get there. All right, so right now my X value is at 11.28 years, and it's $9,900. At 11.48 years, I've hit $10,033. Does everybody see that? Okay, so what's the years that it took me to get to $10,000? Is it 11? Why are you saying 11? All right, before we keep going with that question, I want you to hit table. Let's go look at the table of values. Because to me, the table is a lot easier than tracing. So how are you going to get to the table? Second graph is going to get you there. Now, I can see my X values real easy. They're whole numbers, and I'm sitting at 0. Is there anybody that's not seeing whole numbers? Is there anybody that's not sitting really close to 0? Earlier through the day, somebody was sitting at 128, and they had decimals going on. You want this to be whole numbers, and you want to start at 0. So everybody go up to the top and do second window. I want to show you where to go. Second window, table start. You want your table to start at 0. So if there's not a 0 in there right now, put in 0. Now, this triangle table equals, you want that to be a whole number 1. So make that a whole number 1. Today, earlier, somebody said 128, and their X values were going by 128. So they would have never seen what they needed to see, okay? Now, hit table, hit second graph, and get back to your table. You see how you have 0 and 5,000? Scroll down until you find 10,000. Your Y value being 10,000, do you see it? It hits a little bit over 10,000 at 12 years. At 11 years, it's 9,700. So which one are you going to put? You're going to put 11 or are you going to put 12? Or are you going to put between 11 and 12? I'm going to say between 11 and 12. Between 11 and 12 years. But what if I have to say an exact amount? What if I have to pick only one number that I can write down? Can you say 11 or do you have to pick 12? You have to pick the year. See right here at 11 years, it's only 9,700. So you can't pick the year that it's going on inside that year. It has to be the beginning January of that 12th year. It is above $10,000. Okay? So if we had to pick one number, we would pick 12 years. Okay? What do you think? I want you to go try number 7.